So we have a site open in SharePoint Designer. So how do we go ahead and make new web pages in SharePoint Designer? Well, sometimes the best answer is you don't. See, here's the thing. We know that using the browser, if I create a new page on this team site, it's going to tell me that it will be created in the Site Pages library. That's the default location for new pages in most SharePoint 2010 sites, at least the ones that don't have publishing enabled. And if I'm in SharePoint Designer, I can see that I have this shortcut to that library. Site Pages shows up as part of my navigation. And I can see various pages that I've already created, and I can click them. And in fact, if I select them, and by selecting them, I mean I click somewhere in the highlighted line as I mouse over, but not on the name directly. Well, what will happen is that by selecting them, I'll see different parts of the ribbon will appear. If, on the other hand, I click directly on the name of the file itself, in this case to projectx.aspx, I'm going to get taken to a settings page about that web page. It'll tell me who made it, when it was last edited, who can see it over here in permissions, how many versions there's been of this page. And it will even give me a link over here to edit this file. So I'm going to click that to edit the file. Thinks about it for a second, and then SharePoint will show it in this design view. It's complaining about a lot of my Latin placeholder text here, no big surprise. But I can even use the cursor to come over, see this, that I'm getting a paragraph here. I can type directly in and add some content. All the usual things that you would expect in a web editing tool. However, notice that if I move my cursor around, say up here a little bit, I'm getting the no entry sign around the navigation, around the quick launch bar, all this information. And that's SharePoint Designer telling me that this stuff is not available for me to edit. I can't just click in here and change this. It's being controlled somewhere else, and I can't change it, or at least not here. Now also notice the breadcrumb trail that we have at the top here that's telling me I'm in the site called example team site, I'm in the library called site pages, in the file called projectx.aspx, and in the editing view of that file. And that can be useful to kind of navigate your way back up. If I click that, it's going to say, do I want to save the changes? I'm going to say no right now. So I can see the settings of the page. I can go back up to see site pages in general. I can go back up one level just to see the entire site. Go back down here into site pages. Selecting one of these files just by clicking not on the name but beside it will activate some of these areas on the ribbon. So for example, I can select Project X. I can come over here and select to preview in the browser. And notice that I'm getting multiple options here depending on the browsers that I have installed. So viewing it in IE9 at a particular size, or even previewing in multiple browsers at the same time. And that can come in handy if you're testing that your design works across multiple browsers like Firefox and IE. But we're meant to be talking not just about editing pages and viewing pages, but also about creating new ones. Well, if you look up here on the ribbon, that when I'm in this Site Pages library, I do have two buttons here, to create a web part page and to create a page. Now this seems like it would be the same choice as when using the browser, but it isn't. In fact, the web part page here is the closest experience to how it is in the browser. If I click this, I'm going to see the drop down that gives me multiple layouts here of predefined layouts, different columns like the header, left column, and body, the dark rectangles representing these web part zones. But the other button over here is page, and that seems like it would make a wiki page, but it's not going to be the same thing. In fact, page will require you to first make a choice. Is this an HTML page? And that means literally a regular static web page file, or an ASPX page. Now, as you've probably noticed, pretty much all of our pages end in .aspx, and that simply means they're built to use the Microsoft ASP.NET technology that SharePoint itself is built on. So I might think, okay, I'll just go ahead and make an ASPX page. I click that. It's going to create a new page here that by default will be untitled underscore something, in this case untitled underscore 1. Let me just go ahead and make this, let's say I'll call it a simple page. Hit enter. It will rename it. Now it says here that this is wiki page. That's a little misleading. The best example of the difference here, well, let's preview this page in the browser. That's it. Completely blank, completely empty. You see, when you make a page in SharePoint Designer by using this option with an ASPX page, we're not getting a wiki page. It's giving us either a completely blank ASPX file or an HTML file where we have to provide everything. You're kind of on your own. In fact, if I drill into this page, into the settings of it, and then say I want to edit this file, it's going to tell me that I need to open this page in advanced mode. That actually means I just need to go directly into this view. There's nothing else to see. It's empty. Now, this is occasionally useful if what you want is a completely empty HTML or ASPX file. But for the most part, if you're creating wiki pages, make them in the browser. You can always edit them in SharePoint Designer, but make them in the browser, because otherwise you'll just end up with these empty ones. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. I really don't need it. Now, you don't have to put all these pages in your site pages library. You could go in directly into, say, the all files location, and you'll still see the options there to make your web part page. But this is a very uncontrolled way of doing it, just directly in the root of the site. It's something that I see a lot of people do if they were familiar with SharePoint 2007, where you had a lot less control over where your pages went. But I do recommend putting all your stuff in the site pages library, and that's what I'll be doing going forward until we get to the publishing sites, where I'll be putting them in the pages library. Now, dropping back into one of these pages, whether it's a wiki page like this one, which I can edit, or a web part page, but either way, you might be wondering, why can't we edit this navigational area? Why can't I click in here and change a color or change a font or change a logo? Well, it's because all pages in a SharePoint site are using something called a master page. And a master page is something that describes the overall look and feel of that site. In this case, it's describing what the navigation is going to look like, what the top bar is going to look like, where the search box is, what colors are being used. So it's not directly editable here, but we can use SharePoint to edit our master page and give ourselves a completely new design. In fact, if you look over here in the navigation section, there is in fact a master pages section that contains master pages, and we can edit all of these, but that will come a little later.